Hi, welcome to the Crypto Republic. If you're serious about staying ahead in this once-in-a-lifetime financial shift, make sure you like this video and subscribe. Hello, XRP Army, and welcome back. Here at the Crypto Republic, we give you the bird's eye view, a satellite perspective to spot the big picture shifts while everyone else is stuck in the daily chaos. Just a reminder, this video is for educational purposes only. This is not financial advice. Always do your own research before making any investment decisions. The International Monetary Fund just dropped a warning shot that should terrify every single person watching this video. AI is about to supercharge cyber attacks on the global financial system, and the IMF says the current infrastructure is not ready. But here's what almost nobody's talking about. There's a blockchain project that has been building the exact solution for this problem for years, and it is called ICP, baby. I'm going to walk you through the IMF's warning in detail, connected to the macro cyber threat landscape, and then show you why ICP, the Internet Computer Protocol, is uniquely positioned to be the infrastructure layer that protects the financial system from exactly this kind of AI-driven catastrophe. This is not hype. This is not speculation. This is a technological that is already live, already processing real data, and already solving the exact problems the IMF just flagged as an essential threat to global financial stability. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand why the smartest people in blockchain and cybersecurity are paying very close attention to what ICP is building. Let me be clear before we start. This is educational analysis, not financial advice, always. I am connecting publicly available data from the IMF's cybersecurity research and ICP's technical architecture to show you a thesis. Do your own research always, but pay attention because what I'm about to show you is genuinely important. Let's get into it and let's break this down and dissect it. Okay, so let me break this down exactly, what the IMF said and why it matters so much. The International Monetary Fund published a warning that artificial intelligence is rapidly amplifying the threat of cyber attacks against the global financial system. They did not use soft language. They said a signal breach could cascade across interconnected financial institutions, turning a localized incident into an economy-rattling shock that could freeze payments, shake markets, and erode confidence in banks worldwide. Here's the specific example they cited. Anthropic released an advanced AI model called Claude Mythos Preview, and researchers found it was capable of identifying and exploiting vulnerabilities across every major operating system and web browser, even the hands of non-experts. Let me say that again. People with virtually no cybersecurity expertise were able to use this AI to find and exploit critical vulnerabilities in the systems that run the global financial infrastructure. That's so scary. Let that sink in. Now think about what that means. The barrier to launching a sophisticated cyber attack is not just lowering, it's collapsing. You no longer need a team of elite hackers. You no longer need state-level resources. You need a computer connection and access to an advanced AI model. The IMF said this foreshadows how fast-moving, AI-driven cyber risk could destabilize the entire financial system. But here's where it gets really interesting for us. The IMF identified a specific structural vulnerability. The financial system relies heavily on a small number of cloud providers, software platforms, and AI models. This concentration means that one successful attack on a widely used platform could trigger cascading failures across hundreds of thousands of institutions simultaneously. The IMF called this a potentially macro-financial shock, not an IT problem. A macro-financial shock. That is the same language they used for banking crises and sovereign debt defaults. So the question becomes, how do you build a financial system that is resilient to AI-powered attacks when the current infrastructure is centralized, concentrated, and vulnerable? This is exactly where ICP enters the conversation. ICP, the Internet Computer Protocol, was designed from the ground up to solve the centralization problem. Unlike traditional blockchains that rely on centralized cloud infrastructure, ICP runs on a decentralized network of independent data centers. There is no single point of failure. There is no central cloud provider that, if it's compromised, brings down the entire system. The architecture is fundamentally different and is fundamentally more resilient. Let's go in depth on the centralization problem because it's the core of the IMF's warning. And it is the core of why ICP matters. The global financial system runs on infrastructure that is shockingly concentrated. A handful of cloud service providers host the vast majority of financial applications. A small number of software platforms across the majority of transactions process all of these. A few AI nodes and models are being integrated into critical decisions-making processing across the industry. The concentration creates what cybersecurity professionals call a single point of failure. If an attacker compromises one of these critical nodes, the damage is not limited to that one node. It cascades to every system that depends on it. Think of it like a power grid. If one major power plant goes down and it is connected to the entire grid, the whole grid goes dark. The IMF explicitly warned about this. They said heavy reliance on a small number of cloud providers, software platforms, and AI models means one successful attack could trigger cascading failures. They're not talking about a theoretical risk. They are talking about the actual architecture of the current financial system. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm hitting you with a lot, trying to take the PhD out of PhD. Let this sink in about what I just went over and said how important this is, and nobody's paying attention. Now, here's what ICP does differently. Internet Computer Protocol runs on a network of independent data centers spread across multiple jurisdictions. These data centers are operated by independent node providers who must meet strict hardware and security requirements. The protocol uses advanced cryptography and consensus mechanisms to ensure that no single data center, no single operator, and no single jurisdiction can compromise the network. If one data center is attacked, the network continues operating. If 10 data centers are comprised, the network continues operating. The system is designed to be resilient against exactly the kind of cascading failure scenario that the IMF warned about. And this is not theoretical. The ICP mainnet has been live and processing transactions since May 2021. It has demonstrated the resilience in practice. The Internet Computer processing transactions through a system called chain key cryptography, which allows the entire network to operate as a single, unified computer, despite being distributed across hundreds of independent nodes. This means that applications built on ICP inherit the security and resilience of the entire network, not just the security of a single server or a single cloud provider. Now, let me connect that. AI threats specifically to ICP's architecture. The IMF's warning is fundamentally about speed and scale. AI-powered attacks can identify vulnerabilities, craft exploits, and launch attacks at machine speed. Human defenders cannot respond fast enough. The only way to defend against machine speed attacks is with machine speed defenses. And the only way to ensure those defenses are always available and never compromised is to build them on infrastructure that cannot be taken down by a single attack. This is where ICP's design philosophy becomes critical. The Internet Computer is designed to host applications entirely on-chain. That means the front end and the back end, the data, and the logic all run on the blockchain. Write that down. This is massive. There are no centralized servers to the hack. There are no traditional databases to breach. There are no cloud instances to compromise. Let me put this in perspective. When a traditional financial application is built on AWS or Google Cloud, the security of that application depends on the security of AWS or Google Cloud. If an AI-powered attacker finds a vulnerability in the cloud infrastructure, every application running on that infrastructure is at risk. This is exactly the cascading failure scenario the IMF described. When an application is built on ICP, there is no cloud infrastructure to attack. The application runs on a decentralized network of nodes, each of which is independently operated and secured. An attacker would need to simultaneously compromise a supermajority of nodes across multiple jurisdictions to take down the application. The computational and logistical requirements for such an attack are orders of magnitude greater than attacking a centralized cloud provider. And here's the kicker. ICP can run at web speed. The Internet Computer processes transactions with finality in 1 to 2 seconds. It can serve web content directly to users without going through centralized intermediaries. This means that applications built on ICP are not just more secure, they are also faster and more efficient than traditional applications. The Internet Computer's canister smart contracts, which are the building blocks of applications on ICP, can hold both code and state, can interact with users directly, and can communicate with other canisters. This architecture enables the building of fully decentralized applications that are as responsive and feature-rich as traditional web applications, but with fundamentally superior security properties. Let me give you some numbers here to frame the opportunity here. The global cybersecurity market is projected to reach $376 billion by 2029, growing at a compound annual rate of over 13%. The financial services sector is the largest and fastest growing segment of this market, driven by exactly the kind of AI-powered threats the IMF just warned about. But here's the problem with traditional cybersecurity. It's fundamentally reactive. You build defenses, attackers find ways around them. You build new defenses, attackers find new ways around them. It's an arm race, with AI lowering the cost of the attack. The attackers are gaining ground. With ICP offers as a fundamentally different approach. Instead of building higher walls around centralized systems, ICP eliminates the centralized systems entirely. It is not a better lock on the doors. It's a house with no doors. The Internet Computer's architecture addresses the 3 primary attack vectors that AI powered: cyberattacks exploit. First, infrastructure attacks, targeting servers and cloud instances and network equipment. ICP eliminates this vector by distributing the networks across hundreds of independent nodes. Second, application attacks, targeting software vulnerabilities in specific applications. ICP reduces this vector by running applications in isolated canisters, smart contracts with formally verified execution environments. Third, data attacks, targeting stored data in centralized databases. ICP mitigates this vector by encrypting data and distributing it across the network. Now, ICP is not just a theoretical solution. The Definity Foundation, which developed the Internet Computer Protocol, has been working with governments, enterprises, and institutions on real-world deployments. The Internet Computer has been used to build decentralized social media platforms, enterprise communication systems, and critically, financial applications that require the highest levels of security and resilience. The ICP ecosystem has grown to include over 200 projects building on the network. Community of developers, node providers, and users is expanding, and the technical capabilities of the network continue to advance with regular protocol upgrades. The IMF's warning had a significant geopolitical dimension that I want to address because it directly relates to ICP's value proposition. The IMF said cyber risk does not respect national borders, and inconsistent oversight across countries could weaken the global interconnected financial system. Let that sink in, ladies and gentlemen. It's massive. Emerging economies, often constrained by limited resources, may face disappropriate exposure to AI-powered cyber attacks. This is a critical point. The current financial infrastructure is not just centralized. It is jurisdictionally connected. The major cloud providers are headquartered in the United States. The major software platforms are developed in a handful of countries. The major AI models are trained in a few locations. This means that the security of the global financial system is, to a significant degree, dependent on the security posture and political stability of a small number of nations. In a world of increasing geopolitical fragmentation, the bipolar world order I discussed in my previous analysis, this jurisdictional concentration is a massive vulnerability. If geopolitical tensions escalate, the nations that control the infrastructure could use that leverage as control. Or conversely, adversaries could target that infrastructure as a way to project power without direct military confrontation. ICP's decentralized architecture addresses this vulnerability directly. The Internet Computer Network spans multiple jurisdictions. No single country controls the network. No single government can shut it down or compel it to act against its users' interest. This jurisdictional resilience is not just a nice-to-have feature. In the current geopolitical environment, it is a critical requirement for any infrastructure that aspires to serve the global financial system. The Internet Computer's governance is managed through the Network's Nervous System, or NNS, which is an on-chain algorithmic governance system that allows ICP token holders to vote on protocol upgrades, network parameters, and other governance decisions. This means that the evolution of the protocol is determined by its community of stakeholders, not by a single entity or government. For emerging economies that the IMF flagged as particularly vulnerable, ICP offers a path to participating in the global financial system without being dependent on infrastructure controlled by foreign powers. As a country can operate its own ICP nodes, participate in the governance of the network, and build financial applications on a platform that is resilient to both cyber attacks and geopolitical pressure, let me talk about the AI arms race specifically, because this is where the urgency of the IMF's warning becomes most apparent. The IMF said AI is both the threat and the solution. Attackers are using AI to find and exploit vulnerabilities faster than ever. Defenders are using AI to detect and respond to threats. But the question is, who wins the arms race? In a centralized infrastructure environment, the attackers have a structural advantage. They only need to find one vulnerability in one critical system. As AI makes attacks cheaper and faster, the defender's task becomes exponentially harder. In a decentralized infrastructure environment like ICP, the dynamic is fundamentally different. There is no single critical system to attack. Each node operates independently. Each application runs in its own isolated environment. The attacker's task becomes exponentially harder because there is no single target whose compromise cascades through the entire system. But ICP goes further than just decentralization. The Internet Computer Protocol is designed to integrate AI capabilities directly into its infrastructure. Canister smart contracts on ICP can interact with AI models, process AI-generated data, and execute AI-driven logic, all within the secure decentralized environment of the blockchain. Imagine a financial system where AI-powered fraud detection runs not on a centralized server that can be compromised, but on a decentralized network where the AI models themselves are distributed and secured by blockchain. Imagine a payment system where AI-powered compliance checks are performed on-chain, transparently and immutably. This is not science fiction. This is what ICP's architecture enables. And as AI-powered cyberattacks become more sophisticated, the need for this kind of decentralized AI infrastructure will only grow. The internet computer's ability to serve web content directly to users without centralized intermediaries also has implications for AI security. One of the most common attack vectors for AI-powered attacks is the manipulation of data in transit between users and applications. When an application is served through centralized servers, an attacker can potentially intercept and modify the data. When an application is served directly from the blockchain, the data is cryptographically secured end-to-end. Now, let me talk about the regulation because the IMF specifically called for policymakers to treat cybersecurity as a core financial stability issue and to prioritize resilience standards and systematic supervision and international coordination. This regulatory push is going to reshape the financial technological landscape. Institutions that cannot demonstrate adequate cybersecurity resilience will face regulatory consequences. Institutions that can demonstrate superior resilience will gain a competitive advantage. ICP's architecture provides a natural compliance advantage in this environment. The transparency of blockchain-based systems makes it easier to demonstrate security properties to regulators. The immutability of on-chain records makes it easier to audit and verify compliance. The decentralization of the network makes it easier to demonstrate resilience against single points of failure. The Internet computer's on-chain governance through the NNS provides a model for transparent, algorithmic regulation that could be adopted by financial regulators instead of relying on opaque, manual processes for overseeing financial infrastructures. Regulators could use on-chain governance mechanisms to monitor and adjust system parameters in real time. The European Union's Digital Operation Resilience Act, known as DORA, which came into effect in January 2025, requires financial entities to identify, classify, and manage ICT risks. It requires them to test their resilience through threat-led penetration systems. It requires them to report major ICT-related incidents. ICP's architecture, with its distributed nodes, cryptographic security, and transparent governance, is inherently aligned with DORA's requirements. Similarly, the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision has been increasingly focused on operational resilience through cybersecurity risk. The Basel III framework includes provisions for operational risk management that are directly relevant to the kind of AI-powered cyber threats the IMF warned about. Financial institutions that adopt ICP-based infrastructure will be better positioned to meet these regulatory requirements. The regulatory trend is clear. Governments and institutional organizations are moving towards treating cybersecurity as a systematic risk that requires systematic solutions. Centralized infrastructure is increasingly seen as a liability. Decentralized infrastructure is increasingly seen as a solution. And ICP is one of the most mature and most capable decentralized infrastructure platforms in existence. Let me talk about adoption because technology is only vulnerable if people use it. The Internet Computer Protocol has been building ecosystems methodically. The network launched in May 2021 after years of research and development by the Definity Foundation, which was formed by Dominic Williams and has assembled a team of world-class cryptographers, computer science, and engineers. The technical milestones ICP has achieved are significant. The network can process in transactions with finality in 1 to 2 seconds. It can serve web content at HTTP speed directly from the blockchain. It supports canister smart contracts that can hold both code and state, enabling the building of fully decentralized applications. It has achieved chain key cryptography, which allows the entire network to operate as a single unified computer. The ecosystem growth has been steady. Over 200 projects are building on ICP, spanning decentralized finance, social media, enterprise tools, and gaming, and critically, infrastructure and security applications. The ICP community includes developers, node providers, validators, and users from around the world. The node provider network is expanding. ICP nodes are operated by independent providers across the multiple jurisdictions, and the NNS governs the onboarding and management of these providers. The distributed node network is what gives ICP its resilience, and as the network grows, the resilience increases. The integration capabilities of ICP are also important for adoption. The Internet computer can interact with other blockchains through chain, key, cryptography, and threshold signatures. This means that ICP can serve as a security and resilience layer for the broader blockchain ecosystem, not just for applications built directly on ICP. For financial institutions evaluating ICP, the key question is not whether the technology works, it is live and processing transactions. The key question is whether the ecosystem has reached the maturity and scale needed to support enterprise-grade financial applications. The trajectory is clearly positive. The developer community is growing. The tooling is improving. The institutional awareness is increasing. Let me pull this all together and show you why I believe the IMF's warning is actually a massive signal for ICP. The IMF just told the world that AI-powered cyber attacks are an essential threat to the global financial system. They said that current centralized infrastructure is vulnerable. They said cascading failures are possible. They said emerging economies are disproportionately at risk. They call for decentralized resilience, international coordination, and AI-powered defenses. ICP provides all of these things. It is a centralized network with no single point of failure. It spans multiple jurisdictions, providing jurisdictional resilience. It can host AI-powered applications securely on-chain. It is aligned with emerging regulatory frameworks like DORA and Basel III. It is live, operational, and processing real transactions. The cybersecurity market is heading towards $376 billion. The financial service segment is the largest and fastest growing. The AI threat is accelerating. The regulatory pressure is increasing. The demand for decentralized resilience infrastructure is growing. ICP is positioned at the intersection of all these trends. It is not just a blockchain. It is a decentralized cloud computing platform that can replace centralized infrastructure for the most security-critical applications in the world. The internet computer's ability to serve web content, host applications, process transactions, integrate AI, all on a decentralized network with cryptography security, makes it a unique solution to the exact problems the IMF identified. And here's what I think is the most important point. The IMF's warning is not going to be the last. As AI capabilities continue to advance, the cyber threat to the financial system will only intensify. Every new AI model that lowers the barrier to sophisticated attacks makes the case for decentralized infrastructure stronger. Every new cyber incident that disrupts financial services makes the case for ICP's architecture more urgent. We're in the early stages of a fundamental shift in how the world thinks about financial infrastructure security. The old model, centralized, jurisdictional, concentrated, and then on a small number of providers, is broken. The new model, decentralized, jurisdictionally distributed, resilient to single points of failure, is being built right now. And ICP is at the forefront of that. So here's where I land. The IMF sounded the alarm. AI is coming for the financial system. The current infrastructure is not ready. The threat is not theoretical. It is here. It is accelerating, and it is getting worse with every new AI model that gets released. The question is not whether the financial system needs to change. The question is what it needs to change to. And I believe the answer is decentralized infrastructure. Infrastructure that has no single point of failure. Infrastructure that spans jurisdictions. Infrastructure that can run AI-powered defenses at machine speed. Infrastructure that is transparent, audible, and resilient. ICP is building exactly that infrastructure. It's live today. It's processing transactions today. It is hosting applications today. And it's positioned to become the security backbone of the next generation of financial infrastructure. This is not a guarantee. This is not financial advice. This is my analysis of the macro trends, the technological capabilities, and the adoption trajectory. But I believe the convergence of the AI cyber threat, the regulatory push for resilience, and the maturization of decentralized infrastructure creates a window of opportunity that is generally historic. If you're watching this and you care about the financial future infrastructure, pay attention to what is happening with ICP. The IMF just told you why it matters. The technology is here. The question is how fast adoption accelerates. Do your own research. Read the IMF's analysis. Study the ICP technology. Look at the ecosystem growth and make your own informed judgment. Because the world is changing, the threats are evolving, and the solutions are being built right now. If this analysis was valuable, hit the like button and subscribe. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your take on the IMF warning and the role of the decentralized infrastructure. And if you want more in-depth analysis connecting macro trends to specific technologies, let me know in the comments. This content is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be taken as financial advice. Always do your own research and consult a licensed financial advisor before making any investment decisions.